Hello, and welcome to another World of UX podcast. This is your host, Darren Hood. Thanks for taking the time to join us on today. A special welcome to those of you that are joining us for the first time. We have more interviews on tap, but in the meantime, we have a couple topics we're going to dive into. Short and sweet today. There was something that I encountered in my social media travels that really stuck with me, and it hit me that it'd be a good idea to talk about this particular topic today. I don't think we've talked about this a whole lot in the past. We definitely have not dedicated, if I remember correctly, an entire episode to this title. What happened was I was on social media, and I spent a lot of time on social media. I interact with people a lot. I answer questions a lot. I post a lot. I meet people. We have conversations, just a lot. I'm thankful for social media. I mean, you turn the clock back X number of years and we don't have this. Back in the day, we had the BBS systems. We had different types of communication that would take place, which really, when you think about it, it was a forerunner of social media because we could engage with somebody, traverse land and sea. We crossed time zones. We did all types of things. We engaged with people that we otherwise, without those resources, we would not have had the opportunity to engage with people like that in real time. And it was just great. I learned a lot. Engaging with people over social media has changed my life. Over the years, I would not be where I am today without the ability to interact with people around the entire world, talking about all types of things at all times of day or night, just with the ability, faceless individuals. Initially, you didn't know what anybody looked like early on. You really didn't have the ability to look up somebody's background. You just engaged. And a lot of those engagements, a lot of those interactions really helped quite a bit. I know it helped me. Again, I wouldn't be who I am today if not for those interactions. But as I constantly mention, prior to 2011, there was pretty much zero misinformation in UX circles. If you picked up a book, it would vault you forward when you dove into it. If you went to a conference, you would hear talks that would vault you forward, help you to become the best you, the best absolute you. Just all types of resources. The Facebook had just started in the mid 2000s or so, and people were starting to connect out there. There's a lot that's going on, but you didn't interact with anybody without that interaction having a desirable impact upon them as individuals. Well, after 2011, and when we entered the wild, wild west of UX, these things changed. And you have all types of things that are going on in all types of places. People want to be seen. They want to be heard. I tell the story from time to time how that I first started doing what we now know as UX back in 1995. That's when I did my first work that relates to the discipline. And with the exception of just sharing things, I would come across in my early days in social media, I wasn't creating anything original. I wasn't saying anything original. I would come across fantastic articles, just all types of great resources, and I would share that information. That's all I did was curate when I first got started. And it wasn't until 2011, 2012 that I started originating my content. And it was a lot of times it was because I saw things that were happening in and around UX that I knew to be a threat. And I began to sound out. That's how I started sharing information. That's how I started writing blog posts. All the things that I do today started with that. A couple years or so, actually 2-3 years after that, I started speaking at events for the first time. And now I do that all over the world as well. But again, you could hear a talk, you could look at a social media post, and it would help you out. I never encountered a social media post. I never saw a talk. I never encountered anything that I regretted prior to 2011. But again, today, it's everywhere. And that's what started. And I know there's a lot of things like that I do bring up from time to time. But this particular post really, it really got under my skin from the perspective that got to speak out about it, not angry. People say, oh, you're angry. You know I'm not angry. You're just falling victim to stereotypes. And some of the people, frankly, are racist. And anytime a Black person, a person of African American persuasion, speaks with passion, then they go into stereotypical racist mode and they say that we're angry. We're only angry. We're angry, but everybody else is passionate. We're doing whatever, and other people are smart. It's to throw all that stuff out. Throw color out the window. It's worthless. Doesn't mean a thing. Throw gender out the window. Doesn't mean a thing. What is the quality of the content? Is it accurate? Is it valuable? And if so, embrace it. But that said, little minor digression there. I saw a post, and I'll give you a little bit of the information behind the person who posted it. The person who made the post, and I talk about this a lot, when somebody posts something and the experience, the acumen necessary to say what the person said, if the experience necessary to make the statement and the experience that the person actually possesses don't match, there's a problem. When somebody makes a statement and you had to have been around for at least 10 years to get it, then you know that somebody is either, as you see today, and somebody did say that this post was really generated from AI. The person who made the post did not have the experience and the knowledge in order to make the statement that was being made. And the post actually was about not believing what you see at face value when you see job posts and things of that nature. And when you're trying to apply for a job, make sure that you look at what the job description is saying and look at it from that perspective and don't get caught up in the titles. That statement is true, but that person doesn't have enough experience to really know that. So the statement that somebody made where they were saying that post was actually generated by AI, and I don't know for sure, but I think that person knew it because they put in certain keywords and it spit out the same exact statement, the same exact post that the person put out there. This apparently is how the person knew that it was AI. That's what I deduced from it. And this is happening a lot. People want to be seen. They want to be heard. And people forget it's AI, artificial intelligence. You've had artificial sweeteners. You've had artificial flowers. Just go down the list. A lot of things that are artificial means it's never as good, never as authentic, never as genuine as the real thing. The same goes for AI. A lot of people we just did episodes with Jan recently about AI, and we said the same things. And he's an expert in that arena. He agreed with the things that I said. We share it with you again. AI, I call it an oxymoron because if the intelligence is artificial, that means that it has a lot of holes that you can poke in it pretty easily. And that's what we're about to expand upon. I think that the person who created the post, even though it came from AI, will say that there's a general element. The general message of the post was spot on. You shouldn't get caught up in the titles in a job post because it's not about the title of the job or the job title itself. It's about what the company wants you to do if you get the job. So you look at the description, asterisk. The other thing that this person did not address, and the thing that AI doesn't know to address, is that a lot of companies, the job postings that are published, and we have talked about this to an extent, so this is not what we're about to get at. This is not where we're just building up to what we want to talk about today in totality. A lot of job posts are, the people who write them don't really know what to say. A lot of people copy job posts from other companies that are posting for the same position, and they've got issues that the company who copied the job post don't know about. So job posts are not an end-all be-all. A lot of them are completely off. A lot of them they contain erroneous information. I have had interviews where I applied for a job, got the interview, but I saw something in the job post that I knew to be inaccurate. but I applied for the job anyway. But during the interview, I made sure to bring it up and ask questions about those things that I saw in the interview, and would always be told, oh, we meant to take that out. Oh, we didn't get a chance to take that out. No, don't be concerned about that. That has nothing to do with the job. So when you come across a lot of situations like that and you see what's going on in the job posting world, you know that there's issues. So the person, according to reports, created the post based on what AI, matter of fact, AI actually created the post, and the person just went ahead and posted it because they wanted to be seen and heard. And they didn't consider the fact that it's impossible for them to have known what they were talking about based on the level of experience that they had. Then the sad thing is you get a bunch of people who have the same amount of experience or less that just automatically gravitate to it and think that it's great. Because a lot of people, when you're new to UX, you don't have a filter, you don't know, critical thinking is not at the forefront of your mind. And it's really sad to see these types of things happen, because critical thinking is one of probably the 5 key traits that a high functioning UX professional has to operate in. But people are coming into UX, they want to be in UX, but they don't want to be a critical thinker. Well, then you don't want to be in UX then. And I'm not saying throw all those people out. I'm just saying that if you want to be in UX and you're not, you are critical thinking averse initially, that's going to have to change, because you have your team, you have your company, you have the discipline. You're accountable to a lot of different people, and you're impacting a lot of different people, and you have to embrace, from an ethical perspective, you have to embrace the reality of that accountability. So just sharing that. But now, all that said, foundation laid, in this social media post, in addition to what the person said, message has some degree of validity to it. That's not what got me. It was the accompanying visual. And the accompanying visual was a modified version of a famous illustration that shows the Marvel superhero Spider-Man. And now some people are like, oh yeah, well, but hear me out. Usually there's 2 different versions of Spider-Man, both pointing at each other. And one is trying to say that they're the real Spider-Man. That's the way it really goes when that really happened in a cartoon years ago. But in this particular version, it has the headline POV, and I think somebody actually inserted this because this is not part of it. This is not the way it's normally illustrated. It says POV, which is an acronym that stands for point of view. That means this is somebody's opinion. This is how somebody views the situation, and it's subject to judgment, subject to scrutiny too. But it says POV, UX designer in startups. Now that's immediately a clue that this is associated with misinformation, because who cares, frankly, who cares? What's going on with UX designers in startups is only applicable if you're talking about UX designers in startups. The post wasn't talking about UX designers in startups. So I don't know how there's already a disconnect between the visual and what was said in the post, what the person actually said in the text of the post. That's an issue. But instead of 2 Spider-Man in the image, there are 1, 2, 3, 4. Looking at it right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And of the 7 Spider-Man, somebody typed a supposed UX job title above each. And each one of them is pointing at somebody else, or they're pointing at 2 other people. And so the way that the original Spider-Man illustration goes, they were both really Spider-Man, but they came from different places and were arguing about who the real Spider-Man was. So using that original message, what they're trying to say is that all 7 of these Spider-Men, they're all some version of a UX professional, and they're all trying to claim that one is accurately representing the discipline and the other 6 are not. The 7 job titles that are here, another sign that something is wrong. Interaction designer. I'm starting top left. If you've seen this illustration, you know what I'm talking about. interaction designer. The second one is product designer. The next one is content designer. Let's throw that one out now. I'm not even going to address that anymore because a content designer is it a type of UX or is it related to UX? That is actually more content strategy, and content strategy is related to UX, but a content strategist is not necessarily a UX professional. And one of the things that was said, if I remember correctly, one of the things that was said in the post was that all 7 of these are focused on doing user-centered design work. I'm going to tell you now, that's not true. So all product, matter of fact, let's just back up. I'll take these on one by one instead of reading them all off. So I'm going to double back here. Let's go back to product designer. I'll come back to content. The product designers, the average product designer is an order taker. An order taker. That person who is usually a visual designer or a formal visual designer, all they care about is churning out designs as quickly as they can. There is little to no concern as to whether or not that design is authentic, whether it's proper, whether it's properly executed. Product designers, all they are is design mills. All they do is churn things out. They don't care about anything but making sure that they're still getting a check, that they still have a job. They have no ethical association or commitment to user experience whatsoever. So let's know and understand that. And that's one of the reasons why, and I've said this recently, you see so many product designer roles out here, and UX roles are actually starting to decrease in volume because people want the product designer role. And I've had product designer as a title before, but we were doing UX work, and our boss and our team were trying to we were trying to transition into real UX work, but that was the job title. Okay. So product designers, not usually really real UX people. Let's know and understand that. Backing up to interaction designers. Interaction designer, at one time in the earlier days of UX, that was one of the official titles that you would see. Matter of fact, most people were either interaction designers, a scant few experience designers, because that was out there, but it wasn't catching on. So gross minority, and information architects. That's what you would see in the wild prior to 2010. That was it. So interaction designer was an early title for a UX person. Matter of fact, it was the only of the 7 titles I'm looking at. It was the only one of these 7 that was a recognizable job title prior to 2010. You rarely see interaction designer at all today. So interaction designer, we accounted for. Product designer, let's just throw that off to the side because that's not even legit very much. And then you have content designer, not UX at all. You hardly ever see that at all. And that's somebody just trying to be different. If you do see it, it's not a thing. Number 4, UX/UI designer. And you folks know how I feel about UX/UI. And we're going to dedicate some time to addressing that in the near future, especially because some people are giving into it and they're saying it because they don't think we should fight against it. And even some people that I fully respect. And I even respect their opinion about that. Hey, it's an opinion. Respect it. Who cares? But a lot of people have not seen the damage or are not considering the damage. Might as well stop here, huh? That the acronym UX/UI or UI/UX, which, by the way, is the 5th one that appears here in this illustration. I don't know why they think flipping it means anything, because it doesn't. I think somebody was just trying to fill a gap because they couldn't think of 7 titles. So that's what that is, because it doesn't matter which one you put first. There's no such thing as UX/UI, because UX is a moniker that's referring to all of the different things that we do to drive success in our initiatives. And UI happens to be a subset. And in addition, some people do UI work and they don't do anything. They don't use UX at all to generate their UIs. So sometimes UX and UI are completely separate. And when you say UI, matter of fact, when you say UX/UI, in the minds of many, you're basically reducing UX to an aesthetics only discipline, which it is not. Matter of fact, the aesthetic part of our discipline is a small part of the discipline. Most of what we do drastically dwarfs UI work. So just something that folks need to be aware of. So again, UX/UI is number 4. UI/UX designer is number 5. And these two don't even exist. Now, are these job titles in the wild? Yes, but they're basically an indicator that the company that's projecting that doesn't really understand or respect what UX is, and they're following suit with what other people have done, or they assume that that UX is UI and that UI is UX, and why not just mention them interchangeably? I love what someone said recently. They said that people need to understand what the slash means. We've talked about that before. I've had guests on the show talking about that. The slash in many instances means that the two items that precede and follow the slash are interchangeable. That is not true. And people need to know that. And if you're a UX professional today and you don't understand that, that doesn't bode well, because everybody really knows it. If you talk to people, they know it. So people are saying UX/UI or UI/UX, and they don't really realize what they're saying. They don't realize what they're implying. They don't realize what they're insinuating. And just to share with you the reason why I'm so soapbox oriented about that is because of how it drives misperception. Now, and nobody can argue that. When you say UX/UI, when you bring UI into the discussion, especially considering the small percentage that's really reflective of UI within our work, they've got to be in a massive state of denial. And I know some people, some very well-known people, some people that I used to be on the bandwagon with some of these folks, but I don't anymore. There are some people that fight against what I'm saying right now big time without really fighting against it. You can't present what I'm saying about the dangers, the threats, and the detrimental impact of UX/UI, the facts. You can't fight against the facts and maintain your stance. You simply can't do it. Once people see us as aesthetics only, then the value that they perceive that we bring to the work automatically diminishes, because folks think anybody can do that. But if you look at everything that UX really is, everybody can't do that. So when you detrimentally impact the perception of what we bring to the table, nobody can say that doesn't hurt us. That's impossible to draw that conclusion. And I thought it was really funny that we were having a conversation, some of us at the recent Kaizen UX rendezvous. We were talking about how that a particular person that fights against why we're even talking about it, it's such a waste of time, yada, yada, yada. And I said, you know what? I blocked the person. I'm not connected to the person, so I don't know what's in their profile. I said, but I can tell you what's in their profile without looking at it. And it wasn't like I looked at it and I'm remembering. If you're fighting against what I'm saying, you are either that person either has never worked in enterprise, they've never worked in an environment where management of UX maturity is something that was on their plate, or they have not worked in that environment for a long time and have witnessed firsthand how people with that UX UI mindset, I'm talking stakeholders and clients, I'm not talking about practitioners now, I'm talking about how UX is perceived by those who have to endorse us and support us and be our internal champions, the people that keep the UX work going, because we don't keep the UX work going. We facilitate people wanting to keep the UX work going. That's what we do as UX professionals. The people who fight against me with this and who fight against the others who are taking a stand about this, those people, again, they either have never worked in enterprise, have never worked in situations where management of UX maturity is a big thing, or they have not done it for a long time. Now, take what I just said and go and examine it. And when we were having that conversation, somebody looked at the person's profile who's getting real big, because they make money off of it. They monetize trying to take a stand against me. They try to paint a picture of me and people like me as being some kind of UX boogeyman. And then they do that, and then they make the person feel like I'm a threat and that they're safe. And next thing you know, they're selling the person classes. And the deluded, deceived, manipulated person doesn't realize that that was the end game, that you end up buying that person's classes. So we'll leave it at that. Folks, there is no such thing as UX, UI. I told the person that did the post this, by the way. I wasn't silent and I'm just sitting here and come on the show talking about it. I told the person, they thanked me for my input, which is usually a passive aggressive way of avoiding the conversation. We'll see what happens with the person later on, and they don't know that I know that. But there are some people that did see what I said, they liked it, and they understood it. And that's who we're concerned about. I'm not worried about the people that don't believe what you're saying. I'm not concerned about the people. I actually expressed thanks. And thanks to those of you who are listening right now, who support, who understand, who have respect for what we're doing. I did a post on LinkedIn earlier today. I'm recording this on Monday, August 4th, and Monday, August 5th. I'm sorry. I'm looking right at it. Monday, August 5th. And somebody came in, several people came in and said, yep, we appreciate it, yada, yada, yada. Thanks for all of that. I appreciate all of that because this is thankless. What I'm doing is thankless. There's not enough people that support and appreciate what I'm doing. And there's a lot of people that fight against it, hook, line, and sinker, what it is I'm doing, even though they don't have any data that says they should be fighting against it or tells them that, hey, Darren Hood is off his rocker. They don't have any data that proves that. It's really sad, but it is what it is. And I know what I'm saying. I know the authenticity of it. I know the accuracy of it. So we just go on from there. But it's just funny how people, we don't, sharing something I said during the Sinister series, we do not support each other enough. We need to support each other more. I look for people to support. I find people to support. I'm going to support them because I know that it's tough. It is tough out here. I'll get off of that bandwagon now. Let's just end that right there. Again, there is no such thing as UX, UI. Nobody has data to support that we should be endorsing that. And it is dangerous. Every time somebody says it, they set us back. I'm known for saying that quite a bit. And we need to stop hurting the discipline. We can't keep digging ditches for ourselves in the discipline and then complain about what comes out of us digging ditches for the discipline. So we got to be better about that today. Number 6 on the list is UX designer, which is okay. Some people say that, hey, we shouldn't call ourselves UX designer. And you know what? I'm not going to get into the semantics of the thing because a lot of this stuff is semantics. UX is a moniker. You will not find many people that will say that UX is a moniker, but it is. It's really just a representation, a combined, a way to represent. When we say UX, I'm saying all these things. And we need to see it as that way. And if we see it that way, number one, it makes it easier for us to describe what we do, to define what we do. It makes it easier for us to agree that we're doing the same thing. And some people say UX, some people just want to say experience design, or that's cropping back up again, and that's fine. Some people say, I've started just referring to myself as UCD now because it separates. And that's one thing that I am endorsing now. If people want to take UX and run off with it and they want to bundle it in with UI and then everybody thinks that those people are visual people, in a sense, if that's what ends up happening, because we don't know, we really don't know how this is all going to play out. Someone referred to this as a civil war. That's very well said. That's dead on accurate. There is a civil war in UX today. But if these people are going to run off with UX, UI, and then they want to get us to be recognized by that, then I will stop referring to myself as being a UX person. And that's what I started doing. I'm an experience designer. I'm a user-centered designer. Because now when you say that, we're not grouped into what I'm looking at in this illustration now. If you want that, take it and go. Take it and go. Because UX has been bastardized. It's no longer what it really is. There are very few people who talk about UX in a pure way. The cult of UX has taken over. Visual design, those people rule. And the anarchy that's associated with visual design, they're bringing it with them. And once the standards go and once it becomes dominated by visual design, then you know what? eventually those jobs are going to disappear too. And the UCD people are going to come back to the forefront. That's what's going to end up happening. So for those of you who do track what I say and everything that I say ends up happening, there's another one for you. If this happens and we're not able to save the discipline from a nomenclature perspective, and isn't that weird? Nomenclature is a part of our discipline and people having problems with nomenclature. That's absolutely hilarious and it's ironic at the same time. So we are UX designers. That's what we do. And so I'll continue to refer to myself as that from time to time. That's all fine and dandy. But just know that's one of the things on the list, and that's who we are. And all these others can disappear because you know that interaction design rolls up into that. Product design can roll up into that. Content design is part of that. What people are calling UX UI designer and UI UX designer, unless the person is just doing visual design, because there's really no difference between that person and the product designer. So let's just throw that out, and that's rolled up into product design, and product design was already rolled up into UX. So this is what's in a job title, and that's really the title of this episode. What's in a job title? It depends on what you're doing. That's what's in a job title. And because this is a nomenclature-dominated discipline, what we call ourselves does mean something. I'll never forget. We got one more in this list, and then we'll be done with this little address today. I spoke at a conference, the UX Strategy Summit in San Francisco in the summer of 2015. And my title at the time, I was a manager, but my title was not manager. My title was UX specialist. So now I am misrepresented. Here I am, I'm a UX manager for a Fortune 100, I believe it is, or Fortune 200 at the least, for a Fortune 200 company, speaking at a very large conference. A lot of people were at that conference. I met some folks that are near and dear to my heart to this day at that conference, and several people. And here I am, a manager at the conference. You know what my title was back then? UX specialist. You know why? Because I specialized in UX. So I didn't think of the title at all. I didn't care about the title at all. I cared about the work. And this was for the first time in my career. Second time, really, because I worked at another organization. I've told this story before where, you know what? We're not just doing information architecture, so you shouldn't call us that. It misrepresents who we are. And I pushed for having UX in our job title. I've told that story before. So you didn't do that. It's amazing how people tell you what you did and didn't do when you were there, where people take your account of something and completely throw it out. I don't know, because they find themselves superior. That's some really crazy gaslighting oriented stuff. But that happened, and I know it, and the person in the meeting know it, and the boss that I told eventually what I did, because he had to eventually put his stamp of approval on it. But that started with me. So that's the first time I did it. And then that was in 2009 when I did that, 2008, 2009, somewhere along in there. And then fast forward to 2015, where here I am, people say they love my talk, and the talk that I delivered, the folks over UXmatters.com said that they thought it was the best talk at the event. And it was about how that UX is actually a leadership function. Whether you are a leader, a recognized leader in your organization or not, I talked about how that UX is actually a leadership structured function. We are thought leaders. We're making big impact. What we're doing is huge, and it's not just aesthetic. And anybody who thinks that what we do is aesthetic, or if your work is limited to aesthetics, you are being undersold. You are being put in a really weird and compromising position. That's not a good thing. And after the talk, of course, there's a lot of socialization, and a lot of us were hanging out like all night. It was a fantastic conference. And I was talking to somebody, and they said, "Oh, so you work for company so and so?" I said, "Yeah." "And you're a UX specialist, huh?" I said, "Yeah." "Wow. How long have you been doing this? Because, the way that you're talking, you talk like you have way more experience than what a UX specialist should have." And I'm thinking, what do you mean by that? And they said that a UX specialist, where I come from, a UX specialist means that you're entry level. I'm going, what? So I was really thankful for that wake up experience that really made me sort of come to attention. And I'm going, wait a minute, you mean to tell me that all these people, there's a fraction or a certain contingent, a certain percentage of the people that see me, Darren Hood, UX specialist, speaking about topic X, they think that I'm just getting started? And that's really something. So from that moment forward, I became extremely sensitive about the titles that people have. So when you see people speaking at a conference, their title is how they represent. That's the first thing that serves as a point of representation between that person and the entire world. When you see titles on LinkedIn, which a lot of people just make up now, they just type anything. They don't put their titles, their actual job title in their description of who they are. Now, these people in this discipline that's supposed to be well grounded in nomenclature or how things are labeled are using ambiguous, ridiculous, and labels that are blown completely out of proportion to represent who they are based on what they want to be seen as opposed to a proper and accurate representation of who they are. So you see all this hyperbole that's going on out here. So a huge mess, just a huge mess. And shortly thereafter, I talked to somebody at my job and I got approval to do it. I mean, that's what you are a manager. So yeah, you can go ahead. I got my business card changed, whole 9 yards. And so now ever since then, because I had UX/UI in my job title about 2 years before that. Oh God, I regret that. I only leave it on my profile and on my resumes because that's who I was. So I leave it. That was my title. And that was the title HR gave me. So that's the title that I show to the world. But it's really sad. This really, what we call ourselves means everything. It means everything because people are going to then ascribe value. They're going to ascribe a series of different things to you and to me based on what our job titles are. My job title today is UX Architect Lead. That's my job title today. With the work that I do in conjunction with Kaizen, I'm CXO. I'm Chief Experience Officer, but that's just stuff I do on the side. So your title means something. You want a title that properly represents who you are. This is why when you see people that are claiming to be seniors and they only have 1, 2, and 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years of experience, that's not an accurate representation of who those people are. You can't be a senior. You got to have at least 8 to 10 years of experience before you can actually be called a senior. And if a person has only worked at one organization, those job titles, that growth, that projection of a higher level of experience, that needs to be toned down. That person they don't have something that's reflective of entry level like specialists, but they're not seniors. They're not seniors. So now somebody that is a real senior, which can be, you can have 18 or 20 years. As long as you have 8, then you should be able to qualify for a senior role. But there's so much ambiguity, and there's been so much muddying of the waters with regard to job titles that now a person that has achieved true senior status applies for a lot of these senior roles today, and they throw that person out. Oh, we'll go with someone else that better matches what we're looking for in this position. And that they don't know what they're doing. The people who get the job they're not seniors. They don't know what they're doing. Everybody's like scratching their head. And then they, in private, they sit around and talk about how they feel like they have imposter syndrome when in fact they're actually imposters. So this job title thing, this is serious business. And it's something that needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed. The last title on the list, which also does not belong on the list, is UI designer. That is a title that used to be referred to as visual designer. And people don't want to be visual designer because they feel like it doesn't have as much pop as UI designer. So they want to be called UI. And then a lot of visual designers, they want to be called UX/UI designers because they know they're only doing visual designer, but they want UX in their job title because they want to be able to claim. And my God, have I met those people before? I've met people, everybody introduce themselves to the team. And that person will, well, I'm UX/UI designer. If you need any help, I'm only working on the visual design, but if you need help with UX, feel free to come to me. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to let anybody do that because I know that you just lied to everybody. A lot of people want some highfalutin element in their job title because of the professional cred, if you will, instead of saying street cred. It's like street cred. They want to be called UI designer because they feel it's sexier. They want to be called UX designer or UI designer because they feel like it makes them feel more accomplished. Is UI designer describing who you are? Well, actually, yes, it is. Okay, so that means if I hear you say UI designer, I know that means you're a visual designer. That's why another reason why UX/UI doesn't make any sense, because it's really saying UX/visual designer. And why do you need to say UX and visual designer? If you're a visual designer, and I've known people who are visual designers who are pretty well versed, they know some good stuff. They've got a nice little handle on some things UX, but they're not responsible for the UX. Okay, so if you're not responsible, see, the job title is what are you responsible for? If you're not responsible for UX, then you don't get UX in your job title. If you have UX in your job title, I'm expecting you to contribute to the UX efforts. And I mean in a sizable way, not to throw an idea out here or there. I mean that you own part of the delivery of the UX. And it's really sad. And it's funny too. You hear people talk about collaboration and they talk about collaborating with UX people. They don't want to collaborate with UX people. They want to tell the UX people what to do. and they don't know anything about what we know as UX people. So again, a UI designer is a visual designer. That is not, if you're doing UX work and you're also responsible for visual designer, which one do you work on the most? Because if you're tied into creating that presentation layer, you're likely a visual designer and you can be a great visual designer and you know stuff about UX. Matter of fact, your designs will be better than a person that's just a visual designer that doesn't have a solid grasp on UX principles. So that's fine. But stop misleading people. Stop with the hyperbole. Stop playing the sexy job title game, because creating this ambiguity, creating the confusion, that's not helping anybody when somebody does things like that. So at any rate, those are the 7 job titles that I saw in this illustration that I'm looking at right now. And folks, only really 2 of these 7 titles are actually legit. And one of the things I said in my response to the post was, these are not 7 job titles that UX people can have. These are 7 job titles that companies are putting on their job posts. And just because they put a title on their job post doesn't mean that it's correct. We have been letting too many people who don't have the knowledge level, the experience, the UX maturity level dictate who we are and what we do. We've been letting them get away with that. And a lot of us do it because a lot of us are sellouts that will do anything to ensure that we keep getting a check. We need to take the discipline back, because right now our discipline is in the hands of people who don't have a right to have our discipline in their hands. So are we going to start representing ourselves the right way? Are we going to start speaking the right way? I was in a meeting not too long ago, and somebody said, well, all we've been doing on this design is a facelift. And I said, no, it's not a facelift. A lot of things, matter of fact, some of the things that you think are a facelift, we actually arose at those conclusions that turned into recommendations because of a lot of the UX-oriented components. We're not just trying to change a color or move something from the left to the right. We're doing far more than that. And if that's all you're doing, you are a visual designer. So stop being a poser. Stop posing as a UX person. Stop playing games with people, because a lot of people, they're trying to understand what we do. And what we do, that quest for understanding about UX is being thwarted by people that are trying to make themselves out to be somebody that they're not. So this needs to change today. What's in a job title? Well, you know what? You tell me. Does your job title reflect the work that you actually do, or is it a reflection of who you want to be today? Let's try to right the ship. If we're going to get the ship of UX righted, job titles are one of the things that does actually have to be straightened out. And if we can have job titles that are actually reflective of what we do, everybody will be better off. So that's it for this particular topic today. Thank you for taking the time to listen to The World of UX with Darren Hood. Glad that you took time. Make sure we're campaigning. If this podcast is having great impact upon you, if we're helping you, then demonstrate it, show it, give a rating, reflect a rating, share it with your friends. Hey, you got to check out this podcast. We're here for the community. This is a public service that we're doing by doing this podcast. So tell people about the podcast. I had people tell me recently, our teams are just enjoying this. You're helping our team a lot. Great. Because if we can help the team, then that's going to help the perception of UX in that organization. That's going to impact those leaders. Those leaders talk to leaders from other organizations. And so you see the ripple effect. This is what we're trying to do. This is what we're trying to accomplish today. So help us, help get the word out. And we appreciate it. Thankful for all of the feedback that we do get. Thank you for those who have been willing to sound off. We're very grateful for that. And remember, we're here for you. Don't forget, anytime you ever have a question you'd like me to address on the podcast, folks are connected to me on LinkedIn. You got different ways you can reach out to me. Reach out, send me a note. I'm going to plan on doing a Q&A segment here in the not too distant future. So we're looking for those as well. That way you can contribute to the show, and we are more than happy to share our thoughts on any particular topics that you request from us. But that is all the time we have for today, folks. So again, thanks for taking the time to listen. And until next time, this is Darren Hood, the host of The World of UX, signing off. Happy UXing, everybody.